Reb Tarfon Nomi Cholim Mamzer Litayir. The Torah says that a person who has the defect, the blemish of illegitimacy of mamzer, this defect can never be eradicated. A Mitzri Adomi, the Torah says the first 2 generations, after they convert, are considered illegitimate Jews. But after the 3rd generation, they're considered kosher Jews. They can marry anyone. But a mamzer, which comes from either an incestuous relationship, adulterous relationship, it says la'olam, it's forever. The person retains that blemish, this illegitimacy forever. So how are we able to purge a family of this defect, which is a permanent defect? Gates out.
Pretty amazing that the Kiva holds that a lot
Correct.
all the children of love.
So that's what we had earlier.
Yeah,
Right? It says, he screamed, he says, Reb Kiva is marbe mamzerim.
right.
That's his position. Well, that's part of his Masorah. Ketzad, so how do you purge the mamzer of this defect, of this illegitimacy? Mamzer shenosa shifcho. Beno evet, a mamzer marries a Canaanite maidservant. The child is an eved. Shichro nimsa ben chorin. So if the master now emancipates the child, what is the child? The child's a convert. Okay, it's interesting. Even today, let's say if today a person's a mamzer. Let's say a person today, let's say you have a non-Jewish woman who wants to convert to be Jewish. So, not a problem. A mamzer is permitted to marry a Gioris. But if we had the mission before, a mamzer marries a Gioris, what's the child? A mamzer. It's a mamzer, correct? But you want to purge that illegitimacy. So he says to a woman, instead of converting, be agreeable to be my shifra kananis, to be my Kanani maidservant. Gets a bezdin, and she converts to be a shifra kananis. A mamzer is permitted to a shifra kananis. He takes her as a wife, even though it's not his wife, as a wife. He cohabits with her. He has a child. What is the child? Child's an eved. A shifra kananis. It's not possible marriage, but if he cohabits with, he's not in violation of a Torah violation.
It's not even allowed.
Right? They don't know. Nobody has to know. Nobody has to look at the ksuba. There's no ksuba. He'll get one of these fictitious ksubas and put it on the wall. Right? That's what but he never married her. It's not possible marriage. He cohabits with her. They have a child. What's the child? He's the master of the child. So biologically, it's his child. But halachically, it's not his child. And now, no. He keeps her. Now he emancipates his child. When he emancipates his child now a full-fledged Jew, is a ger. That's an emancipated slave. So the child, his child, biologically at least, is what? He never violated anything, because he's permitted to a shivcha kanas because he's a mamzer. And the child himself, when he's conceived, is conceived as an eved kanani. Being the master, he has a right to emancipate him whenever he chooses to emancipate the child. Child's a full-fledged Jew, and he considers him his son. So his defect, he could have progeny, although they're not called his children, but in terms of relationship, in terms of a father versus a son biologically, and that's he's able to do it. And the Gemara, we rule like that, Reb Tarfon.
There's zero restrictions on this thing?
No, he's a regular ger.
He's a regular ger.
No, if it's a girl, she can't marry a Kohen. It's a female. But
why is the child a ger?
Every Eved Kanani, once he's emancipated, he's a ger. The Mishnah, next parak.
Without any conversion.
He needs a tefillah. There's a question of a tefillah. But you don't need a new Kabbalah mitzvahs. He doesn't have to accept any mitzvahs to be a Jew. Okay, because an Eved Kanani also has a certain, like a semi-Jewish status. He has to keep all the mitzvahs of a woman. So the moment he's born, or soon afterwards, he emancipates him, sends him to cheder like a regular Jewish child. Right? Nobody has to know. Okay?
Halachically, is he considered the father?
No, biologically. He's halachically, he's not the father. That we had earlier. Ishu yelader tieladonel. But nobody has to know. Nobody has to know. Correct.
The mother also, in theory, had partly married to a mom.
She has to go to the mikveh. I mean, she's in all the laws of mikveh. She's regular for laws of family period apply to her.
When they call the son up to the Torah, they don't call it.
They could call it's no worse than an adopted child. Okay, let's go. 1 second. I'm telling you, you could deal with. That's how you could deal with it today in 2015. You could make Evet Kanani. It was known, the Sassoon family, the Sassoons from India. They were Iraqi Jews. Supposedly in India, they had Evet Kanani. They were very wealthy. They were like Maharajas in India. They had Indians who converted to be like Evet Kanani. They were Evet Kanani. And before they went to England, they emancipated all the slaves. They let them all go. So they gave him. Right. Okay? So the halacha is, Ketzad, Mamzer Shenosa Shivcho, Beno Eved, Shichro. So now that the master he emancipates him, Nimtza Ben Chorin. So the child now, after being emancipated, he's what? He's Ben Chorin. Reb Lezo mehareza Eved Mamzer. Reb Lezo argues. Reb Lezo says no, that even when he's an Eved could have the status of Mamzer. Could have his status of Mamzer. The Gemara cites a posuk. It's based on a posuk. We don't rule like Reb Lezer. We rule like Reb Tarfon, that an Eved only has the classification. An Eved cannot be a Mamzer. Eved only has relevance to being a Jew. If you
Lezer is saying it's an Evet
and a Mamzer. So when you emancipate him, you only remove the classification of Eved, but Mamzer remains with him. Even though it's not his child, it's not called his child, but the defect, the blemish of Mamzer, that remains with the child. That's Rebbe Lezer. It's a question of Reb Tarfon. Rebbe Lezer, Rebbe Yeshua, where is Rebbe? Okay, Iboilu. Now the Gemara poses a question. Reb Tarfon. Is Reb Tarfon saying that it's permitted, l'chatchila, he's permitted to take Shivcha Kanani slave and cohabit with her? Meaning, the Gemara is going to say there's a lav. What's the Torah provision of cohabiting with a Shivcha Kananis? It says, Lo Yeh Kodesh. You're not permitted to prostitute yourself. That since the woman is not marriageable, a Shivcha Kananis you're not able to marry. So the lav of Lo Yeh Kodesh, does it have relevance to an Evet, to a mamzer? Just as a mamzer, he has the illegitimacy. It says, Lo Yeh Mamzer B'Kal Hashem. So he himself is illegitimate in his essence. So this lav of Lo Yeh Kodesh has no relevance to him. It only applies to a kosher Jew. So since he's not a kosher Jew, therefore he's permitted l'chatchila, or do we say no? Because he's a mamzer. O dilma b'diavad comment. No, means post fact, if in fact he had relations with Shivcha Kananis, and she had conceived from him, and now the master chooses to emancipate the child is a kosher Jew. Toshma. Omer le Reb Tarfon. They said the Chachomim. They said to Reb Tarfon, Tiharto es ha-schorim. You've only come up with a solution in terms of the males. If a male who's a mamzer marries a Shivcha Kananis, the progeny, you're able to purge the progeny. But and the kabos. But what about a woman? If a woman's a mamzeris, how do we deal with her illegitimacy? Are we able to bring it to an end? The Gemara is going to say, we'll see in a moment. It's not possible. The Amrit l'chatchila komar. The Gemara understands it this way. If you say that the law cohabiting with a Kanani, with an Evet Kanani, or Shivcha Kananis, has no application to a person who has illegitimacy, such as a mamzer, so what did the Chachomim say to Reb Tarfon? You've only dealt with the male who's a mamzer, but the female, you haven't dealt with her issue. Let her marry an Evet, and the child will assume the status of an Evet. You'll see in a moment. And if the child's an Evet, because we say that the classification of the father, it transfers onto the child. So the child that she conceives from the Evet Kanani, how would we classify the child as an Evet Kanani? And then the master will emancipate the child to be a Jew. 1 second. On that, the Gemara says no. Evet ein lo chayus. No. If a Jewish woman conceives from an Evet Kanani, the child does not assume the status of the Evet. Because ein lo chayus. An Evet has no pedigree. When do we say that the pedigree of the father transfers to the child if the father's a pedigree? The father's Kohen, he's a Levi, he's Israel, or whatever he is, he's a Mitzri, right? Let's say you have a Mitzri, an Egyptian converts to be a Jew. Now he has relations with a kosher woman. Now they have a child. What's the child? The child's a Mitzri. Because since the Jew, the Mitzri converted, he has a pedigree. right? He's not a chattel. So that defect of Mitzri carries on to the child. But if you have an Eved Kanani who impregnates a Jewish woman, a mamzeres, his status, he has no pedigree because he's a chattel. For what is the child? The child remains a mamzer.
But according to that logic, then the man, the master, the man who makes Kanani, has relationship with Kanani, should also have the...
No, that we had earlier. No, that's based on a post because it says Isha Vileti Eladonel, that when you conceive from a Canaanite woman, that has nothing to do with pedigree.
Master.
What?
It's about the master.
It belongs to the master.
Right, so what if can a woman be a master of a house?
No, again, it doesn't make a difference.
What if she was the master of
No, it's only. We'll see in a moment. We'll see in a moment. Toshma. So there's no proof from there. Ushbezichnei Rab Simloi, the landlord of Reb Simloi. He had a landlord. Mamzehoyo. Haba. He was an illegitimate Jew. And he had children. So if he has children, what are they? They're mamzerim. V'omalei. So Reb Simloi, who was Namora, says to his landlord, Iakte Mosoch, Tartir Lebnoch. He says, if I would have known you early, before you married, I would have had a solution how to purge you of your defect. Meaning, what does that mean? I would have instructed to marry a Shifcha Kananis, and conceive Shifcha Kananis, the child doesn't identify with you, then the master would emancipate her. Samar says, Shapir. If you say it's permitted, so Reb Simloi is telling him, there's a way that I could have purged you of your defect. I would have advised you to marry what? A Shifcha Kananis. Eliyamed Yeved. But if you're saying it's not permitted, because the illegitimate Jew is not permitted to cohabit with the Shifcha Kananis, my niu de mitziv le'etzo. Right? My niu. I mean, how could he be given him any advice to marry the woman that's not permitted? So evidently from the conversation with Simloi and his landlord, it's clearly that it's permitted. He says, if I would have known you early, I would have advised you to marry Shifcha Kananis. But it's not permitted. So what kind of advice is this? He says, no. What would he advise? He would have given him advice. V'amali Zilganov, Rashi deals with this. He says, what's the halacha? Person's an Eved Ivri. He steals and he's sold into slavery by the court because he's not able to repay the victim who he victimized. So he's sold into slavery. When he's sold into slavery, the master is permitted to give him a what? A Canaanite wife. So he says, I would have advised you, Zilganov, V'iztabin, Eved Ivri, and you'd be sold as a Jewish slave. 1 second, stop. So Rashi himself asks, what? But you're not permitted to steal. We'll bring a proof. It seems to be that it's permitted. Because he said to him, if I would have known you earlier, I would have advised you to marry Shifcha Kanan. So from there we see, it says, no, there's no proof. The advice he would have given him, I'll tell you, he's not permitted to marry Shifcha Kananis. Even a mamzer is not permitted. It's not permitted. It's only the Eved, but he would have given advice where no Aver was entailed. He would advise him to steal, and if he steals, he'll be sold as a Canaanite slave. I mean, an Eved Ivri, a Jewish slave, and the master is permitted to give a Canaanite wife to him to breed children for him.
But what happened to the point of the master living with the Canaanite?
No, we're holding now. We haven't brought a proof yet. If you hold this b'diev, that means the master is not permitted to live with her. We're holding now. We haven't brought a proof yet that a mamzer is permitted to a Shifcha Kananis. If a mamzer is permitted to a Shifcha Kananis, not married. It's not possible marriage, right? We want to bring a proof from Reb Shmuel's conversation with his landlord that it's totally permitted. Because he said to him, if I would have known you earlier, I would have advised you. So we have proof. Mamzer is permitted with Shifcha Kananis. There's no proof. The advice he would have given different advice, not just to cohabit with a Shifcha Kananis. He would advise him to steal, and then be sold as an Eved Ivri, and then the master is permitted to give him a Canaanite wife. Okay? So Rashi himself says, so what are we accomplishing? So again, you're not permitted to steal. So Rashi says, the Gemara will refute this in a minute, show it's not possible, because time of Reb Simloi, the whole concept of Eved Ivri has no relevance. Because Eved Ivri is only in effect when the laws of Yovel are in effect. And after the Churban Abayis, by Sheni, laws of Yovel are no longer in effect. You can't have Eved Ivri. There's no such thing. there's no such thing as the court being able to sell or a person being able to sell himself into slavery as a Jewish slave. The court can only sell a person into slavery only if there's a Yovel. If there's no Yovel, today the laws of Yovel, no, we have Shemitah, right? But Yovel only reinstituted when we have the third Beis HaMikdash. So as long as there's no Beis HaMikdash, that's the Gemara's going to question. So Gemara says, B'shnei Reb Simloi, Eved Ivri, Mihavo. I mean, that couldn't have been the advice. Gemara says, we want to bring proof. He says, I would have advised you to marry a Shivcha Kananis. So from there you see that it's permitted. No, it's not. He would have advised him to steal. So Gemara says, Ed being Eved Ivri. Gemara says, that's not possible. Reb Simloi was Namori. He lived after the Churban Bayis Sheni. Okay. Ubeshnei Reb so Eved Ivri mihava v'omamar in Eved Ivri noagel was macha yovel noeg. The laws of Eved Ivri only are in effect when the laws of Yovel are in effect. Elav shmami no Reb Tarfon lechatchilu comes. So from the conversation between Reb Simloi and his landlord, we see clearly that it's permitted, that a mamzer is permitted to cohabit with a shivcha kananis. Shmami no, conclusive proof. The Gemara concludes this, and that's the way we rule. Om Rav Yudah Meshmuel halacha ke Reb Tarfon. Rav Yudah says name Meshmuel. We rule like Reb Tarfon. So what I said. So if a man is a mamzer, he gets a non-Jewish woman who's agreeable to convert, and he says, don't convert, be a shivcha kananis. He's not going to enslave her. He'll treat her like a wife, although she's not his wife. Halachically, she's not his wife. All the children that he has from her, he's the master of those children. He emancipates them, they're full Jews.
What if he emancipates her also? She's Jewish.
No, but once he emancipates her, then the blemish carries over. Let's say she reaches menopause.
She has kids,
No, let's say she reaches menopause. She's not able to conceive anymore. Yeah, then he could free her. And she's permitted because she's a Gioris.
Right.
And they're not going to have children anymore.
They have to get married again.
No, then they'll get married. Then they'll get married. Correct.
But in today's world, you say since there is no Yovel, so how do you find, how do you make a woman,
Shivcha Kananis you can make today. No, Eved Ivri you can't have. As we said, a mamzer is permitted as Shivcha Kananis. The law of Lo Yeh Kodesh only applies to a Jewish man. Mamzer is permitted in Shivcha Kananis. So he's permitted her. A Canaanite slave woman. You get a bezdin, you take the woman, and she's agreeable to be a Shivcha Kananis. She's a non-Jew entering into the classification of Shivcha Kananis. She's obligated in all the mitzvahs of a woman, although she's not Jewish. She's not Jewish. She becomes the chattel of the master, and she accepts this in the presence of a bezdin, and they immerse her with this intent. And she's agreeable to be that. Okay?
so it's only the
No, you always did. You need a bezdin for conversion. A regular conversion, you need a bezdin. It's again, there's a transition. There's a lot of transition from non-Jew to another status. You have the bezdin. Morning Yevomis discusses how you convert an Eved Kanani. Rebbe Lezer Mehareza Eved Mamzer. Rebbe Lezer argues. We don't rule like Rebbe Lezer. Rebbe Lezer says that when a Mamzer conceives a child from a Shiv Kananis, the child assumes a double classification. It's Eved and also Mamzer. Omer Rebbe Lezer, my time in the Rebbe Lezer. Rebbe Lezer Amor says, what is the rationale of Rebbe Lezer? How does the child have a double status? Domakro. Now the lav of lo yavo mamzer b'kal Hashem. The pasuk reads lo. There's an extra word lo. Holach acha psulo. That even there's no way, regardless of what this situation is, his defect transfers onto the child. The lo tells me even though it's a shivcha kananis. Rabbona nahub Yisrael shenosam abzeres. No, the Rabbona say, that case, that lo comes to teach us that if a Yisrael marries a mamzeres, although we normally attribute the pedigree to the father, the defect of the mother transfers onto the child. That's the lo.
Is Rabbanan Reb
Tarfon? Yes, that's Reb Tarfon. It's Rabbona nahub Yisrael shenosam abzeres. Sol kedai dechamina. What would have I thought? Why would have I thought that the defect does not transfer onto the child? Therefore, I need low, because it says in the Torah, the Torah speaks about counting the Jews, right? Machzah shekel, to count them. It says, L'mishpuchosam, lebeis avosam. How do you determine pedigree? It says in the Torah, how do you determine pedigree? L'mishpuchosam, lebeis avosam. Their families according to the paternal line. So how do you identify a person? Always based on paternal line. So therefore I would say, so if a kosher Jew impregnates a mamzeres, how does the child identify? Beis avosam. So if the paternal line is legitimate, the child should be considered a legitimate Jew. So lo afke. So the word lo says no. That the defect of mamzer carries on regardless of what the paternal line is. That's what I learned from lo. Yeah, I understand that, but we're saying, well, where do we learn this from? That hakol olech harapogam. It's learned to the chachomim, or tarfin. You learn it from the word lo. Nobody argues hakol olech harapogam, but it's learned from the word lo. So Reb Lezer says, lav avagav dekosav nishkosav beisavosim osa lo afke. He says, I'm agreeable with you that normally, if not for the lo, you would identify the child with the paternal line, but because of lo, I see, despite the paternal line being kosher, the legitimacy identifies with the mother. Hochanami here, same thing. Although it says that the woman and her children are the chattels of the master, lo says, nevertheless, although that may be true, the defect of the legitimacy you cannot eradicate. That also transfers on to the children. Here, just as lo, although the Torah says, L'mishpuchos beis avosam, normally you identify a child only with the pedigree of the father. But the word lo tells me, despite that, nevertheless, the defect of the mother carries on to the child, identical here. Although the Torah says, that the woman and her children are the chattels of the master, lo tells me that illegitimacy, that blemish, is imprinted on the children. So how did Rabbanan respond? So they answer, Rabbanan, kol vlad b'mei shivcha kenanis ki vlad b'mei behemodomi. He says, a child that's conceived by a shivcha, what is the status of a shivcha? She's like an animal. The concept of pedigree, transferring, identify, cannot be identified. If you have a kosher Jew marrying a mamzeres, what is her status? She has an identity. She has an identity. So because she has an identity, that's the reason why it carries on to the child. But the woman, the child who's gestating, who's conceived by the Shivcha Kananish, she's what? She's kebehemodomi. She's like an animal. The whole concept of blemish relating to an animal, which is a physical entity, has no relevance. Therefore, lo cannot be applied to the child of a Shivcha Kananish. This is Rav Tarfon's response, or the Chacham's response to Rebbe Lezer. And we said earlier, how do we rule? We rule like Rebbe Lezer. That I meant like Reb like the Chachamim, that you're able to be Matar Mamzerim. Hajjalach Omi, Hajjalon, Hajjalach Omi, Hajjalon, Hajjalon, Hajjalon. What? Exactly. Amador Domel Chamor. No, Amador, that's why you can't have Kedushin. The two things. How do you know if you marry a Shivcha Hanan, is the marriage not a marriage? Because Amador Domel Chamor. You can't marry a Chamor, you can't marry them. Now, more broader, how do we know the child doesn't identify with the father to any degree? That's the other puzzle. Isha l'dati ladoneo. She's the chattel of the master. She's an object. All she is, she's an object. It's interesting. You know, the first base in Mikdash was destroyed. We spent 7 years in Bavel. When the Jews were in Bavel, many Jews did the wrong thing as a result of being in exile, and many of them married non-Jews. And there's all kinds of illegitimacy, which came about because of the Golus that we were in. Ezra HaSofer, he was the leader. You had Nehemiah, you had Ezra. And you had a person, his name was Baruch ben Neriah. Baruch ben Neriah, he was the Baal Mesorah. He had the transmission intact from Sinai, and his Talmud, who was the student was Ezra HaSofer. Ezra HaSofer initially did not come up to Eretz Yisrael after 70 years with the Jews. He came a little bit later. He came 23 years later. He came a year after the Beis HaMikdash was rebuilt. The Beis HaMikdash was rebuilt when he came. A year after it was rebuilt, And when he came, Ezra, he came with 10 classifications of Jews, kosher Jews and illegitimate Jews. Why did he make sure? And whoever he left behind in Bavel were all pure Jews, kosher. There was no illegitimacy left behind because he was concerned, since all the Chachamim emigrated back to Eretz Israel, so who was left? Ordinary people. So if ordinary people left and you have illegitimate people, people of illegitimate classification, they're going to intermarry. So if they start intermarrying, what's going to be? All the Jews are going to become halakhically corrupted, illegitimate. So Ezra made sure that any level of illegitimacy, he classified them, and he brought them with him to Eretz Yisrael. And Eretz Yisrael, because you have Chachomim, and you have the Sanhedrin, they're able to maintain order that they should not be assimilated. Each group remains by itself, identified as, and not to allow any intermarriage between the various groups. It was pure. I mean, you could create new religion. God forbid a person commits incest or adultery, but when he left, every Jew that was left in Bavel was a kosher Jew. Correct. Right. I mean, they had people, but we're speaking about to deal with real issues, they didn't have people of that caliber. Because all those people of the advanced caliber of Torah, they all ascended to Eretz Yisrael. It was Mordechai. It had nothing to do with this. No. Had nothing with Mordechai. No. Asori Yuchsin, Olo Bibovel. There were 10 classifications of pedigree. Pedigree means both positive and negative. Classifications of pedigree who ascended from Bavel. Okay, together with Ezra, Sofer. Kohani, they were Kohanim. Leviim, Israeli and Jews, ordinary Jews. Chaloli. This is a situation where a Kohen marries a woman that's not permitted to him. A Grusha, right? A woman who had relations with a non-Jew. So what is the child? The Cholol. Gering. A Ger, converts are not permitted to a Kohen. Charuri. You had a person who was a Canaanite slave, and he was emancipated. So Ger and Charuri, that's a Meshuchar, they have the same classification. So the Rishonim say, so why do we classify them differently? Because the Gemara says in Yevamah, if a person has a choice of marrying a Ger or a Meshuchar, the better choice, not in Halacha. In Halacha they're the same. The pedigree is a better pedigree. A Ger is a better pedigree than a Meshuchar, because the Meshuchar was originally a slave. Mamzeri, a Mamzer, that comes from an incestuous relationship. Nesini. What's a Nosin? That's the whole story. We have Yeshua, right? They were one of the 7 nations of Canaan, and they misled Yeshua. We read one of the Torahs, right? The Navi, and they say they came from a far-off land. He entered into a covenant with them, and they converted. And then afterwards, they were exposed that they had misled Yeshua, and he deemed them to be chotz ve'etz mishovimayim. They were water drawers and they were wood choppers. And he said they were not permitted to intermarry into Klal Yisrael. Shtuki, vasufi. Shtuki, we'll see in a moment, is a person, we don't know who the father was. A woman is impregnated, and there's a chance that we don't know who the father of the child. Asufi, you find the child on the doorstep. One day you find a child wrapped on the doorstep. Now, who usually abandons a child? A child that's born out of incest or, right, adulterous relation, the mother wants to get rid of that kind of child. So that there's a strong chance. So what is it? It's a Suffolk Mamzer. An Asufi means gathered in. It's been gathered in from the market. You found it in the street. That's Shtuki Asufi. Kohani, Levi, Yisraeli. Whether you're a Kohen or Levi or Yisrael, Mutar Lo Muzabuseh. They're permitted to intermarry, right? A Kohen's permitted to marry a Levi, permitted to marry Yisrael, and each one is permitted to marry the other. Levi Yisraeli, Chaloli, Geri Charuri, right? If you're a Levi, Yisrael, a Cholol. That's a product of a Kohen marry a woman who's not permitted to him. A Ger or a Meshuchar, Mutar Lo Muzabuseh. They're all permitted to intermarry. No problem, no prohibition of intermarriage. These classifications. Geri, Charuri, Mamzeri, Unesini. What about a Ger or the emancipated slave, a mamzer, a nosin, shtuki vasufi, the safik mamzer, kul mutar lovuz and lozeh. They're also all permitted to intermarry. Now you have a problem. We have what we said. What shtuki and asufi? You're not sure of the pedigree of the father. It may be, she may be impregnated from who? From a brother, an uncle, an incestuous relation. It's a safik mamzer. A Sufi also is a Suffolk mamzer. You found, why does a person abandon a child? There's strong reason to believe. Of course, it was an adulterous or incestual relationship. The woman didn't originally believe she'd become conceived, so she abandoned the child. So there's a Suffolk mamzer. No, but it's a Suffolk mamzer. There's enough circumstantial evidence to be concerned. It may be that. But it's a Suffolk. Suffolk mamzer is what? But it may not be a mamzer. So it may not be, but yet we're saying it's permitted to marry a mamzer. The Mishnah says, the definite mamzer is permitted to marry. They're all permitted to intermarry with one another. How are they permitted? So the Gemara is going to cite a pasuk. Although we normally see Suffolk the rights in the Chumrah, there's an exception by mamzer. Mamzer, it's not only mamzer body, even Suffolk mamzer is permitted to marry. A questionable mamzer is permitted to marry a mamzer. Both ways. A Suffolk mamzer on the Torah level is permitted to marry a mamzer, and a Suffolk mamzer is permitted to marry a kosher Jew on a Torah level. Ve'eluhem shtuki. What is a shtuki? Koshu makar esimo. A person, the child knows who his mother is. Ve'enu makar soviv. He's not aware who impregnated his mother. He doesn't know who his father is. Asufi. Asuf means he was gathered in. Koshu nesaf min ashuk. He was found on a doorstep. An abandoned child. So Rishonim speak, what about you find a child wandering in the street? And you don't know who the parent was. Child has a cheskes kashrus. Why? Because there's no reason to suspect. The child wandered off. But here you have a child, an infant. That means the child was abandoned by a parent. Why was the child abandoned? Evidently, it's clear there's reason to suspect because there's a degree of illegitimacy, and that's why the mother abandoned the child. Right? So asuf means the child was speaking where the child cannot walk. The Rishon say explicitly, if the child could walk, the child does not assume the status of an asufi. Kosher nesav neshuk. Ve'enu makir lo asovos imo. We don't know who the father, we don't know who the mother was. Abba Shaul hoyakore l'shtuki beduki. Abba Shaul argues, and he says what we call the shtuki, which is a Suffolk mamzer. We say beduki, that if we're able, meaning we do believe the mother. If the mother reveals who impregnated her, the halach is the child is considered a kosher Jew. Let's see Rashi. Rashi is interesting. Sorry, Yuchsin, Ol Bavuk, Shalom, Bnei Gold, Bar Forish, Tashmin, Shemich, okay. Shehifish, Ezra, Kolapsulim, Yisham, Hochen, Imo. Chalolim, what are Chalolim? Kohanim, Chalom, Shnolim, Psulikuna. Kohanim, which are illegitimate, they were born from the wives that were not permitted to the Kohanim. Charurim, Shechrori, Nesini, now this is Rashi. Nesini, Givonim, Shemolu, Bimei Yoshua. They were circumcised, they converted. David goes aleim. So we show them speak about this because the question is, if they're one of the 7 nations of Canaan, it's Nis D'Oraisa. What do you mean, David? He decreed that they're not permitted. Shtuga Sufi. Okay. Circumcision, he's a Jew, but it's illegitimate. Well, who ever heard of a parent abandoning a child? See, I mean, if you go with this rationale, let's say during the war, a parent would abandon the child on the steps of a monastery. And if it was a Jew, that was the only way the child could survive. So it's not because of the legitimacy, but if you're dealing with a normal situation, whoever heard of a mother abandoning a child? There's no such thing. So you go to you had a kupas tzedakah, you had a charity, and they would, you don't just, it's unheard of. A Jewish mother doesn't abandon a child. The only reason why why a woman would, and therefore there's great, because it's illegitimacy, it's a disgrace for the family. That's why she's abandoning the child. Therefore, it's a Suffolk mamzer. Okay, let's see the Gemara. On a Torah level, rabbinically not. Rabbinically not. No, can marry a mamzer, even though it's a Suffolk. Let's say something rice l'chumra, she should not be permitted to marry a mamzer. The child may be legitimate. It has been concluded to confirm the child is not illegitimate, but the Mishnah says that a Suffolk mamzer is permitted to marry a definite mamzer.
Yes, but not a regular Jew on the Torah.
Torah level, she can marry a regular Jew. Rabbinically, you're not permitted. Okay, we'll get to the Gemara, we'll see. Asar Yuchsin Olami Bavel. There were 10 classifications of pedigree that ascended from Bavel. My Yiri Tani Olami Bavel. What do we have to identify? What does that have to identify? The origin of where they had come from. They had ascended from Bavel. Nisni, Hochel Eretz Yisrael. What's the focus? Ezra took 10 classifications of pedigree to Eretz Yisrael. What do we have to speak about where they came from? You know, Yetzi Yaakov Be'ersheva Ra'el Charona, right? Which is also, what do we have to speak about where he left from? Torah only should tell where he went. So Rashi, Chazal deal with this. So the same kind of question. Why does Rabbi Yehuda Nossi have to tell us from where they had originated? Say Ezra brought 10 classifications of Jews to Eretz Yisrael. Milza Agavorcha Kamashlan. The Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda Nossi wants to tell us something. Whenever he can inform us something in passing, and he has an opportunity, he doesn't miss the opportunity. Kidetanyo, as we learned in the Braiso, the Kamtavo Lisa Lamokum Sheyivchar Hashem Elokecho. You will rise and you will ascend to the Mokum Asher Yivchar Hashem Elokecho. Malamed should be Samigdash Gavot Mikol Eretz Yisrael. The highest location in Eretz Yisrael is the location of the Samigdash. Because it says every community had a Sanhedrin Katano. They had a court comprised of 23 Dayanim, right? Every community. What about if there was an issue that the Bezdin wasn't able to resolve? So you would go to the Bezdin Agodol, you go to the Sanhedrin, which was located in Lishkas Agozis, on the Temple Mount. So the Torah says, "V'kamtevo lisa lamokam asher yivchar Hashem Elokecho, malami shebezdin gavoa shebesamigdash gavoa mikol Eretz Yisrael." In Dvorim. The Eretz Yisrael gavoa mikol harotzos. In Eretz Yisrael, in terms of locations, highest location of all locations in the world. That the Beis Hamikdash is the highest location in Eretz Yisrael. Hainu d'chsiv, as it says in the pasuk, divrei rivos b'sharecha, that if there's any dispute within the Sanhedrin and you're not, or the Sanhedrins, and you're not able to resolve the issue, Torah says, "V'kamtav alisa," you rise and you ascend to the Bezdin Agadol, to the Sanhedrin. How do we know Eretz Yisrael is the highest location in the world in terms of all countries? The pasuk in Yirmiyah, "L'chein hine yomim boim dum Hashem," the days are coming. Lo yomer od chay Hashem shehelo es bnei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. Will no longer be said that Hashem had allowed us to ascend from Eretz Mitzrayim. Ki im chay Hashem shehelo asher hevi es bnei Yisrael me'eretz Tzafon. Hashem has brought us from the northern land, which is Bavel, that's Iraq. And all the lands that we were cast off there. So the pasuk in Yirmiyah is not only speaking about returning from Bavel, we're returning from all countries which we were cast off there. And it says in the pasuk, Asher Helo, you're going to ascend from wherever you are in the world, you're going to ascend to Eretz Yisrael. So we see clearly from here that Eretz Yisrael is Gavot Mikol HaRotzos. In terms of its location, it's higher than all other lands.